Good afternoon, and thank you all for coming out to celebrate my dad, Stan's life. Before we begin, I would like to make a few acknowledgments and introductions. I would also like to introduce Michael Squires, who will be leading us through today's celebration of Stan's life. Michael spent a good deal of the 1970s working and living in the Bridgeport Valley, much of it here at the ranch. He was a friend to my dad and is a friend to our family, and he now lives in Atlanta, Georgia, and runs a public relations firm and has for decades. Although he is the first to admit that Bridgeport is never far from his mind. The last group of people I would like to acknowledge are the caregivers who took care of Stan for the last 2 years. These people handled a tough situation with grace and humor, and they are the reason that he was able to stay home until the last 2 weeks of his life. They kept him laughing, singing, reciting poetry, and when all that didn't work, they just toughed it out. Our whole family, especially my mom, Jan, will always be grateful to all of them. Laura Pemberton, Tyler Hutcherson, Amy Precy, Brandy Barr, Courtney Walker, Ryan Rao, B. Mellon, Raymond Gaffney, Ashley Murray, Jay Joseph, Crystal Parker, Sally Joseph, Eli Pierce Brown, and Ramey Jo Vakini. Thank you all. So, to all of you whiz-bangs from Alkali Ike's family, thank you from the bottom of our hearts. Now I would like to hand it over to Michael Squires.
This is quite a crowd, and Stan was quite a guy. This celebration of his life is going to include some music. There's going to be a little scripture reading. Some of you are going to get a chance to come up here and tell stories on him. I don't think he'd mind. Before I turn it over to John and Betsy, I want to read something that was real important to Stan, I guess. I've had two people tell me that separate people say that this was one of the more important things that he remembered throughout his life. And it's a quote. It says, "The world is new to every soul when Christ has entered in." And that's a quote from a teacher named Joel Goldsmith that Stan studied with for a long time. He kept that quote in his heart right up to the end when he just couldn't hardly remember anything else. He remembered that. And I feel like he's here with us today. Just look around. So, let's start with a song. John and Betsy put together a song in Stan's honor, and they're going to sing it for us right now.
So, I wrote this song about Stan a couple of years ago, and it was interesting how a lot of things Stan forgot or would get forgetful about. One of them, interestingly enough, was that he would often forget that he had already had dessert. But then, with all of that going on, the ranch, the grass, the cows, the horses, the history of the ranch, that stuff he never forgot. It seemed to me that it was literally generationally in his genes, in his DNA. And so with that, this song came about. But we wanted to play it for Stan when he was still around, and he didn't really understand the context, but he enjoyed the music. So this is called Stan's Song. He bought his first Stanley when he was just 16. He's pushing 80 and he's riding it still. Side by side with his father he'd ride. Now his grandkids ride with him. Memories come and memories go. All these things he can't forget. They're built in long ago. It's all the way in his DNA. Past is back, today is not clear. He's gone someplace, he's not here. Seeing friends from long ago. He's riding a horse that he used to know. Fate dealt him a lousy hand. He's taking it the best he can. He's taking it day by day. You'll never hear him say,
I quit.
He remembers a lot of things. Cattle, horses, water and grass. It's just the order is hard to place. The look of confusion crowds his face. Memories come and memories go. All these things he can't forget. They're built in long ago. It's all the way in his DNA. There's a smile, the family's safe. It shows he just loves this place. As long as he's here in spirit, he's forever at peace. Memories come and memories go. All these things he can't forget. They're built in long ago. It's all the way in his DNA. It's all the way in his DNA.
Jeff Hunewill is going to come up here and read a psalm that's important. But I'll let him do the psalm, and we'll have some songs after that. And I didn't mention that you're all invited for a dessert social after this is all over. We'll talk about that later, so you can have some fun at the end because Stan really liked dessert. All right, Jeffrey.
Thanks, Michael. Is that too loud? Okay. So this psalm was a favorite of my grandfather, Stanley H. Hunewill, and his wife, Lenore, and also a favorite of Stan's, and it's the 121st psalm. I have it memorized, but I've got a cheat sheet here in case. I will lift up mine eyes unto the hills, from whence cometh my help. My help cometh from the Lord, which made heaven and earth. He will not suffer thy foot to be moved. He that keepeth thee will not slumber. Behold, he that keepeth Israel shall neither slumber nor sleep. The Lord is thy keeper. The Lord is thy shade upon thy right hand. The sun shall not smite thee by day, nor the moon by night. The Lord shall preserve thee from all evil. He shall preserve thy soul. The Lord shall preserve thy going out and thy coming in from this time forth, and even forevermore.
Some people that were very close to Stan are going to offer some tributes. You've got Sally Joseph is going to come up. Ken Gardner's going to read something by Walter Briggs, who couldn't be here. He had a pretty strong personal engagement. And Ken's going to take it on his own for a little while. Also, this is, when we finish up with these folks, is a time anybody that wants to come up here and tell a story, we've got about 30 minutes blocked off for that. And so if you got a good Stanley story, hopefully one that involves some laughter, because a man could laugh. We'd love you to come on up and tell the story and maybe tell the anecdote and keep it to about 3 minutes. That'd be just great. And Sally, are you here? I remember this girl.
I'm reminded that today's all about memories, and I guess it doesn't really matter how far back in time, as long as we still have some. Somewhere in the Sierra, an old cowboy rides along. His mind is foggy and playing tricks on him these days. He's been summerin' cattle on this range for over 60 years. But today the cow trails twist and fork in strange and different ways. Sometimes he gets confused, depends more on his horse, the same bay mare he's used for 20 plus years. He's ridden some colts in between, some good and some bad, but it just feels more comfortable looking through experienced ears. He can't seem to remember how many pairs he's turned out, or if that particular trailhead sign is even one he ever saw. But the details of when he killed his first buck at age 12 are clear as a bell. It was up there above that rocky draw. His head seems to be playing trading games with his mind, swapping recent memories for those from long ago. What happened this morning has already gone away, but every word of an old poem is what he seems to know. He's grasping at the present, holding tight to his dreams, for they are quickly sifting through his fingers like sand. He knows that he knows, but he just can't remember, so he clenches his fist tight as if it were his last stand. Most often he appears not to have a care in the world, but frustration makes each step a struggle and uphill climb. He feels alone and lost within the expanse of himself. His memories are brushed up in the willows of time.
Well, thank you for bearing with me getting up here. I met Stan when he was 4 years old, and I was up here as a guest, and I will tell you now that we've been back all these years, but I'm not the oldest guest who's here. There's one person who's got me beat by about 3 years, 1935 or something like. Is that right? 1935, Priscilla? Yeah. And she's older than I am. Anyway, Stan and I go back. Stan's dad liked poetry. I like poetry, and we got together here at Hunewill Ranch. And what's going to happen now is I'm going to do, if I can find the darn things, I'm going to do first an honor for Walter Briggs, who tells you why they're not here. Walter's wife, Linda, was Lenore Hunnewill's brother's daughter, Linda. This is addressed to Jan. Dear Jan, can you hear me? Dear Jan, I have asked Ken to read this letter. As he does so, we are en route to Bellingham, Washington. Tomorrow morning, Jeff, that's her son, will graduate magna cum laude from Western Washington University. The university president has selected Jeff to be the student speaker at the graduation ceremony. Our thoughts will be with you as we travel. When Linda and I visited you after the afternoon of Monday, July 7th, we had no idea what the next 36 hours would hold. As we chatted, you commented how odd it was not to have Stan around after 58 years of marriage. That evening at our cabin, I reflected on your comment. Two thoughts came to mind. First, Linda was present at your wedding on June 10th, 1956, and still has the railroad postcards and brochure from her train trip with Homer and Wilmer for the occasion. Second, I met you and Stan in 1967 when you had been married only 11 years. A great deal has been accomplished in the 47 years since then. As family and friends gather to honor Stan, I wish to honor you. Your love for Stan, your faithful love, your constancy and devotion have been exemplary. I think the Irish poet Thomas Moore so aptly described your love for Stan. So cast your mind back to your wedding day and recall gazing at Stan as he stood there, young and handsome and with a full head of hair, and listen to the poet's words you might have uttered. Relieve me of all those endearing young charms which I gaze on so fondly today, were to change by tomorrow and fleet in my arms like fairy gifts, fading away. Thou wouldst still be adored. At this moment thou art. Let thy loveliness fade as it will, and round the dear ruin each wish of my heart will entwine itself verdantly still. It is not while beauty and youth are thine own, and thy cheek unprofaned by a tear, that the fervor and faith of a love can be known, to which time doth but make thee more dear. No, the heart that truly loves does as truly love on the close as a sunflower turns on her god, when he sets the same look which he turned when he rose. Jan, you have blessed all of us with your example of steadfast love. Thank you. With love and gratitude, Walter and Linda. As I mentioned, Stan's dad did poetry. There are two poems that I'm going to do. One is a poem by Bruce Kiskadden. The second is one that I did independent of Sally and independent of John and Betsy. And about 2 years ago, but we'll come to that. The poem by Bruce Kiskadden is one of Stan's favorites. Fortunately, there is a video of Stanley reciting this poem. His dad used to do it. It's called Tanglefoot Johnny, and you need to hear it before we get to the second poem. Now, Tanglefoot Johnny had quite an affair. He always had figured on roping a bear. So one day when John was riding for stock, well, he noticed this bear that was taking a walk. The bear, he was filling his lungs with ozone while gathering grub from in under a stone. So Johnny lifted his horse in a lope and built him a loop in the end of his rope. He dabbed his rope on him and mighty soon found that a bear is built heavy, close to the ground. It weren't no use for that horse to set back, 'cause the bear turned and charged. He had lots of slack. The horsey got clawed and was plunging around when the bear turned and run, and he drugged that horse down. Now, I don't know how they invented that scrap, but the buckle tore through the off-latigo strap, and the bear was dragging that saddle behind when it caught in the brush, and it wouldn't unwind. So he chawed on the rope and he bit it in two, and in about 30 seconds that ruckus was through. Says I, John, on the square, just what do you think about roping a bear? Says John, well, I tell you, I can't see the use. They're easy to catch, but they're hell to turn loose. So as I said, this poem that I dedicated to Stan was written about a little over a year and a half ago. He was well on his way. Now he sits there in silence with a faraway stare, for the goings-on round him he don't seem to care. I'm going to check it. For the goings-on round him he don't seem to care. If you ask how he's doing, he'll answer, why, great, but he don't know the time. He can't tell you the date. In a stretch, some might say that he's lucky, of course. He don't worry about Congress or taxes or wars. And he eats 3 desserts. You've heard that. You would think he could burst, but he just don't remember ever eating the first. He's not sure where he is. He don't know where he's been. It's a hell of a shape, the shape that he's in. He wasn't like this in times that are past. He would start conversations before he was asked. And as for the rest, he'd wait till you spoke, then come up with some facts or maybe a joke. Still today, when you ask him, a year and a half ago, still today, when you ask him, he'll recite you a rhyme that he learned as a kid, and he won't miss a line. Now, Tanglefoot Johnny had quite an affair. He always had figured on roping a bear. Them old words of Kiskadden's come back right away. The trouble he's got has to do with today. Do you think that he's happy? Do you think that he knows that he's having problems and that some of them shows? Perhaps. But for sure, when he recites them old rhymes, his mind is recalling the best of our times. Thank you.